Welcome back to Thic Borders Gaming, and this is the first video in a tutorial series for Europa Universalis 4, which is the primary Paradox game that I play. I have 195 currently achievements in the game, and consider myself to at least be somewhat knowledgeable and hope to impart some of that knowledge to you in this series. I will say that the primary way to learn this game is to just play it and fail, and learn from that and play again and try to fail a different way. But I think there are some basic things that I can talk about in different games in different places, and hopefully I can impart some of that knowledge to you. I will say that right now, this is 1.29, and 1.29 will be ending soon with the 1.3 expansion called Emperor. But I think the core gameplay will remain the same for 99 out of 100 things, and so we will look at that when that comes, but I think this tutorial will still work going there or beyond. I have all of the DLC, but I currently have none of them on in this tutorial, so this will be vanilla. There may be things that I go looking for that are locked behind one of these DLC that I don't recognize as locked behind the DLC, and so we'll see if we get there when we do. My recommendation is to play a game, see if you like the game. You might lose, but it's fun even if you lose in this game. Or at least it can be. And then if you do like it, to go ahead and buy, to buy Art of War, Common Sense, and Cossacks. That is the typical recommended thing to buy, and those will really help the game really get fleshed out. Usually they'll go on sale about 4 times a year. You can get them at some point for like $20 or so. It isn't really that bad. It is also my recommendation that as a beginner, the first 2 games you play are either as Castile or the Ottomans in some order. Castile really teaches you diplomacy, it teaches you Europe, it teaches you colonization, things like that. The Ottomans teach you just plain out war with all of these people, and managing wars and managing multiple fronts like this. But I would recommend playing one of those two nations as your first game and the other one as your second game. For this tutorial, I will be jumping around from nation to nation to nation that will better provide a way for me to show what I am looking at in that particular episode. Today we're just going to be looking at the first things you should do in any campaign, and the kind of the overlay and kind of the display, and explaining that. One thing to note is that you have to start with choosing a country. There are start dates over here. The most popular start date is the 11th of November 1444. That is the main start date, and nothing is earlier than that. So we have Rise of the Ottomans, that's in Europe. Then we would have Empires of the Sands, and that's going to jump you down to Africa, but it's the same thing. The First Nations will jump you over to the Americas, the Kingdoms of the East, jump you over to India and China. But if you want, you can scroll over there as well. However, you also can jump forward in time. We have the fall of Byzantium, and things change, right? All sorts of more things here. I will say that if you jump way far in advance, it can start to mess with the game a little bit, so I'm not going to click them all because it will mess with the game a little bit, but we are going to start in the 1444 start date. That is the most common start date, and we are going to play the Ottomans for this particular campaign, or this particular video. So we will do that. Now, you click the nation, and then you click play, and you have a choice. You can play in normal mode or in Ironman mode. Normal mode is the one that's selected by default, and Ironman mode is the one you would have to choose. Ironman mode basically is saying that you're playing the game as the developers intended, or at least that they're okay with. Mods can be allowed in that. I have a few graphical mods active right now, but that is all. There are other mods that are fun to play that are not compatible with Ironman mode because they have changed the game in a way that the developers think changes the balance of the game, and so therefore, if you got an achievement on that mod, it might not be as difficult as getting it in a different situation, and so they don't let you claim to have earned it going up against other players. There are achievements in this game. There are 295 as of this recording. Achievements in the game on Steam. Some of them are really, really difficult. Some of them are basically I turned on the game. Only 38%, slightly under 38% of players who own the game have those achievements that are basically I turned on the game. So that indicates that probably about half the players who play at least one game in Ironman mode, and about half the players who play never click this button. So there's no real shame in either way. I personally have played in Ironman mode every campaign that I have played, but there are a lot of people who like to mess with console commands, who like to save periodically through the game without having to cheese that and like go out of the game and copy folders and things like that. It's up to you, really. I am going to play in Ironman mode just because it's what I'm comfortable with and know best, but it's up to you, really. So we'll go ahead and click play, and then you have to name it, so Tutorial 1, and then you start your game or start Ironman. Now, as you begin your game, you are going to want to care about, first and foremost, your allies and your armies. And the game should start loading here because I don't know how much more I can stall. That's not my official job to learn how to stall. You also want to try and plan out what are your initial stages of advancement. What are your initial things you're going to try and grow into? And so those are the things you want to be thinking about. Who do I want to ally and who do I want to attack? As you look at this map in starting the game, there is a good sound. That little click there tells me that it's about ready to begin. Maybe. There we go. So as you start the game, unless you click Do Not Show again, there will be a thing that tells you a little bit about your country, some of the things that have recently happened in your country, who rules your country, things like that. If there is a unique thing in your country, such as the Ottomans have Janissaries, that might be there. I think that might be a DLC thing too. It'll also talk to you about your religion. There are many, many, many religions in the game, but each one has something that it does and that it gives you, and this tab will tell you about that. It'll tell you about your government. There are several different kinds of governments in the game, but the most common are indeed monarchies, and so it'll tell you a little bit about monarchies, and we'll get to that in a moment. And then the environment. The environment page, I don't think it tells you a lot of great information, but you might read a little bit about that. So when you start your game, you will almost every time have this indication that you have too few rivals. There are tabs that come up here in the game. Some are red, some are green, some are yellow. You want to deal with the red. The greens can be left for later, but you want to try and at least look at them and see, do I want to mess with them? So those will be there. Over here, we have the production interface, or what I like to call the macro builder, and that has different things. You have your army. So you can create army. Right now it's just infantry and cavalry, but later in the game you will get artillery. And then mercenaries are units that don't take your manpower, but they cost a lot more money. They cost a lot more gold, or what we call ducats in game. Then navies, you have different ship types, transports, galleys, light ships, and heavy ships. For now, just kind of build what you want. Obviously, transports, you need one transport per 1 unit. So right in this army right here, I have 10 units of infantry and 4 units of cavalry. So if I wanted to move them, I would need 14 transports. Right now I have 13, so I could move this army of 13 units, but not this army of 14. I would have to build a transport. I would do that by clicking on here and then clicking on the province. Make corps, that's not something I ever use from here, or missionary. I do this elsewhere. Local autonomy, probably not something you need to worry about as a beginner. Change culture is definitely not something you need to worry about as a beginner. Buildings is probably the main thing. Buildings and land units is probably the main thing you're going to be using this interface for. And when we get to the buildings guide, I'll go over some more of the buildings and what this might look like, but this is really where we are. Development, you can use your monarch power to develop your provinces, and then estates. For the most part, do not worry about estates as a beginner. Just, yeah. There might be events that make you worry about it, but don't worry about it. On this tab here, the country view, this is kind of the main menu, if you will. We have our court. We can see our ruler here. A 646 is what they're called. That means he produces every month 6 admin, 4 diplo, and 6 military. He is 12 years old. He is very, very good, and one of the reasons the Ottomans are a power in every single game, almost every single game, when he controls the AI. You also have advisors you can get. So if you go down here and you click this space, it'll bring up advisors you can get. They each cost an amount. They cost a price. This is what you have to pay immediately to hire them. And then this over here is what they cost per month. So when we get to the income tab, you can see if you have that much per month to do. It is highly recommended, if you can afford it, and it's highly recommended to try and afford it, to at least have one that gives you +1 in each category. And then they also give you some benefit. In this case, stability cost, yearly prestige. They're okay. I'm just going to pick some here just to get it going. So trade efficiency, spy network construction. You can kind of begin eventually to see what these do in your game. The next one is government, and so you're in your government. You have your sultanate. You have any modifiers that might be in the game in your country, so things will pop up during the game that will affect your country for 20-25 years, something like that. That might be on here. It'll just list it out so you can go through and find out what is there. You have your primary culture, which in the case of the Ottomans is Turkish, and then what culture group that's in, which is Levantine. You don't really need to worry about that too much. The one thing you might need to worry about is we have promoted cultures. Right now I have promoted 2 out of 2. And as you go in the game, you'll get more of those. And then as you conquer over here, if I were to conquer, say, Serbia, the amount of my land that is controlled by Serbian culture will grow from 3% to something larger, like say 18% Greek or 21% Bulgarian. At which point I might, if I have another slot open, I might go ahead and pay to click this button, which would then promote that culture, which would lower unrest, lower chances of rebellions. So if you're having problems with rebellions later in the game, this is where you want to try and find that with the largest culture group. Diplomacy is the third tab. That is one that you will be sitting on for quite some time. Right now, this is on my country, but if I want, I can go over to another country, and I can open up the diplomacy tab, and now it's on their country, and I can do things with them, such as offer an alliance, which they would not do, or some influence stuff. I could proclaim a guarantee. I could improve my relations, or I could insult them. I could try and royal marry them, which again they won't do. I could spy on them and do some other things here. I could issue an embargo and tell them they can't trade with me. I could send them a gift. I could send them a loan or offer them a loan. I could give them money every month, or I could sell them a province, and then I could ask to march my military through their lands. I could offer to let them march through my lands. I could ask to base my fleets in their ports, or offer the same. So all of this is in the diplomacy tab, and you can do that with every nation in the game. If you want to go back to your own nation, though, you click this button down here, and you get back to your nation. Also, you can create a vassal out of anyone, and so if you want, if I wanted to, I could click on one of these flags and they would receive the provinces listed here, or 7 provinces in this case, you know, and then it would be released and they would follow the Sunni faith. I'm not going to do that, but that would be where that is. You might hear that later on. The economy tab is the 4th tab. Here you can see your income and then your expenses. So you can see I am paying those 3 ducats, 1 to each of those advisors right there. State maintenance, don't really worry about that, but it's there. Fort maintenance means I have 5 right now, and it's 1 per fort that is on. So right now I have a fort in Salonik, in Edin, in Kocheli, in Anakra, and in Sugla. And they are fully maintained, and so they each cost 1 ducat a month. You can click this button here to mothball that fort, and then it will be reduced to half its cost. Later in the game, you can upgrade your forts, and that changes them to 2, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16, and so on like that. So that's kind of that, and you can see I'm making more money there, right? We also have some sliders here. If you make any colonies, you can change how much you pay on the colony. If you do any missionaries, you can change how much you pay them to convert. Again, the more you pay to the colony, the faster it grows. The more you pay to the missionary, the faster he converts. You also can root out corruption. Right now I have 0 corruption. We'll get to that in a moment. But you can root out corruption if you want to pay some money there. So, I'm growing. You can see the yellow there. My corruption is growing. It's not going to kill me, but it's something to worry about, so I better get this little marker down here for a yearly change of 0.00. That's what we want to see. Army maintenance. Your army needs to be at full maintenance if you are at war or fighting a rebellion very soon. Otherwise, you can lower it down, and that, of course, would earn you a lot of money, but would lower your army's morale. And then fleet maintenance is the same deal. This is basically the morale that they have, is how much you pay them. But fleet maintenance is never really that big of a deal, so we don't worry about that too much. Trade, this is really not something you need to worry about too much. Basically, whatever is top here on this menu, or if you go to the trade map, whatever has the main trading port icon, this little box here, you want to click that. You want to click collect from trade, and you want to grab one of them, and then I would just not worry about it too much. After that, as a beginner, that is something that's very complicated, and you just don't need to worry about it. The next tab is technology, and this is something you do need to worry about. As you go each month over here in the court, you can see that you make a certain amount of power. So in this case, we make 6 administrative skill from our ruler, and then we make another few from being a kingdom. That is 3 for being a kingdom. You would make 2 if you are a duchy. You would make 4 if you were an empire. And then the advisor gives me 1 more, and so that's 10 per month. And so I have 126. You spend that on a lot of things in game, but one of the things you spend that on is technology. And if you hover over this bar, you can see that I need 598 power to advance to administrative technology 4. I have 126. If I spend no administrative power on anything else, I will have the amount I need in December of 1448. If someone else gets it before me, this number would change to a green -5 or -10 or -20, depending on how many techs ahead my neighbor is. And then that's a percentage, so that would lower it down. So if I had a -10%, I would now need 550 instead of nearly 600. The same thing with Diplo, same thing with military, and those are independent of each other. It's not too bad if you fall a little behind in administrative and diplomatic, but you do not want to fall behind in military that far if it can be avoided. If you take it, then there is a timer and a year where the next one is supposed to go. So right now, Tech 4 would be on time. And so we want to get Tech 4. But when I take Tech 4, if I took it right now, this would change to red and would change to like +60 or something like that, which means that I would be 6 years ahead of time. It's expected to be at Tech 4 in, say, 6 years. And so I would have to pay extra to get to Tech 5. And that's just a way of keeping the game balanced. The next tab is Ideas. So every few administrative ideas, you can unlock an idea group. And so when I get to administrative tech level 5, I can click one of these options. There will be another video on ideas, maybe a video on administrative and another video on diplomatic, another video on military ideas. When that comes to it, don't worry about that too much. Then we have the missions tree. And so the Ottomans have a lot of missions. Castile has a lot of missions. Excuse me. There are other nations that don't have a ton of missions, but this is one of the tabs here. Decisions and policies. You don't need to worry about that too much right now. This will come up when you have a potential decision that you can take. And you want to look at that and see, do I want to take it? So right now, anything that has a green check mark, we could take. Right now, I could adopt the title of Khalifa, and that gives me a plus 0.5 yearly prestige with seemingly no drawbacks. So I'd say, yes, I want to take that, and I'll click that little button and it'll go away. Let's see, there's bound to be one that is there. Okay, so this one, I have a national manpower of 10%, but there is a red, right? That is a drawback to this particular decision. I lose 100 military power. Let's say I don't want to do that. We probably do want to do that particular one, but let's say I don't want to do that. I would then click this button, this little yellow, and it'll take down here, and then that icon will not recognize this. It'll just sit there, and I basically rejected it. So that's basically what you need to worry about with decisions like that. The next page is stability and expansion. So here is your war exhaustion. So there might be an icon that comes up that has this little symbol on it that just says your war exhaustion's high. You use diplomatic power to reduce war exhaustion at 75 cost plus whatever modifiers it has. When you're at peace, it goes down. When you're at war, it stays the same. When you're occupied or you take losses in a battle, it goes up. And then this is for stability. So there will be an icon where perhaps this little picture shows up. This is where you go to this tab, you go to stability, and you can boost it back up to 0 or 1. You want to keep it at 0 or 1 if at all possible. 2 and 3 are luxuries. -1, -2, -3 are cause unrest in the country. This is also where you will see rebels and possible rebels, as well as your national unrest. And you can hover over that to see what's causing your national unrest. Religion is here. So there are religions in this game, as we mentioned. And for the Ottomans, they are Sunni. But you can see over here, if you kind of remember their stuff, we own a province that is Shia. And so you can see the province and the religion is Shia. And it's red to indicate that it's not the right one. Also, we own a lot of provinces that are Orthodox up here. So again, this is not the right religion. Our religion tab, and you can see the religious tab here, tells me that I have missionaries that could be sent somewhere. And so this shows me the provinces that are not the right faith. This will tell me the amount that they are penalizing this amount here, religious unity, which creates national unrest and corruption. So there's not too many that are contributing too much. You can see 0.25, 0.3, 0.2, or 2 point whatnot. That's, is what it is. But this is here. So each one of these lowers my religious unity from 100 by this much. And so combined, they're doing a number on it, right? National unrest of 0.74 per province. This is the amount of time it would take to convert that province in months. So right now, if I pressed this button, I would send a missionary to Karasiri, and for 166 months, that missionary would be at work in that province to convert it to Sunni, and I would pay 0.68 ducats per month for that missionary to be there. However, a larger province like Sofa, I would pay 1.66 ducats per month for 555 months. If the missionary strength changed in that province through whatever reason, there's plenty of different ways to make that happen, then the month number would go down, but the monthly cost would stay the same. There are different ways to lower the monthly cost. So let's say if I click this button, it will cost me 0.68. I say OK. You can go back to the economic tab, and you can see that my missionary maintenance is 0.68 and my income has gone down. We can also see that I have a new thing, Provincial Unrest. Hey, that province doesn't like that I'm trying to convert it. It's going to come up with Particulus. That's interesting. Normally it would come up with Zealots. I was expecting that. Right? And so the size of that rebellion is 8,000 troops because it's only one province that's really providing anything to that. And then there's different options for that. It will grow at a amount based upon the unrest in the province and the number of provinces that are involved in that rebellion. And in this case, it would take about 23.1 years. Basically, what happens is that every month, it's a dice roll, and let's say a 20-sided dice, and right now only if it comes up with a 1, would that be a rebellion. But otherwise, it might be any of the first 10 would advance at 10%, and when it gets to 100%, they will rebel. But that's the basics of that. Military, we have your troops. So as you get technology in military, you might be able to change your unit. You might be able to get different things here, and this would be where you go to do that. There'll be a little green icon that pops up with this image of an infantry on it, and if you hover over it, it will tell you what you can upgrade and not. This is where you go to upgrade it. You just click on that and it will go to the next thing. So when I get to whatever military technology 5, I could change to Azab infantry. That will do better stuff, which we'll get to when we talk about military. This is also a place where you could mothball every fort in your country, or you could bring all your forts online. Mothball all your forts. It's also a place where you can recruit a general or an admiral or a conquistador or a explorer if you go for colonization game. You also can give your ruler military control. That is an option that is sometimes a good option, sometimes not a good option. There is also a subjects tab, which we will get into in one of the next videos when we talk about subjects, but this is the subject here. And then the estates, where you can interact with them. For the most part, the only real interaction you really need to know about is there is always something that has a little plus symbol here, and that will lose 5 prestige or something like that. It'll gain a little bit of influence, and then it gains loyalty. So you typically want to click that, and it can be clicked every 20 years. And then presuming that that small amount of influence doesn't get you over 100, that's the big thing you want to worry about. And then if this is over 60, you will demand diplomatic, military, administrative support, and it goes down 20, but you get 50 points, and if it's a little bit higher, you'll get even more. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Seek support of clergy, demand administrative support, call die. That gets me to 85, which is, you know, interesting, but okay. And so that is there. Let's get into what you want to do at the very, very beginning of any game in Europa Universalis 4. The first thing you want to do is obviously just do that click there. There are ways to min-max that a little bit better. You may see me do that in some of my other videos, but for a beginner, just do that click and you're fine. You want to deal with any decisions that you can do. So in this case, Muslim nations get a lot of these things. If your ruler is over, I think 3 in any of the categories, you get one of these decisions that are only good and no bad. And the reason for that is that it's because your ruler is good. So you want to deal with that. You also want to pick your rivals. So remember when I talked about at the beginning of the game as it was loading, figure out what you want to do. Where do you want to go? And figure out who is going to be a friend and who is going to be a foe. One way you might do that is to look at your missions. Every nation has missions. Most nations have just generic missions, which in the case of the Ottomans here is this square right here. Just the middle 3 columns here. That is the generic missions. It is what it is, right? You're going to build the force limit. You do want to do that right at the start of the game because it's easier to do at the start of the game than it is later in the game when your force limit is higher. And then that will give you an effect. In this case, morale of armies plus 5%, land maintenance modifier minus 5%, which is the normal effect to that. In Castile, at least with the DLC, but maybe in the vanilla as well, the mission will say prepare for Reconquista, and you actually get a claim on Granada. But you do want to do that, and we'll do that in a moment. But for the Ottomans, for instance, we have a mission called City of World's Desire, which says owns Constantinople. Okay, so Byzantium, which owns Constantinople, which, by the way, if you don't know where that is, you can hit the F key, and you could just type in Constantinople, and you can click it and it will highlight it in purple. You can see it there, and it's easy to see, relatively easy to see, not on the purple of Byzantium, but relatively easy to see. And then you click any province to undo the purple. But so we know that Byzantium is going to be food. So if we could, we would rival Byzantium. If not, we might rival some of their allies. You will want to rival people that are near you or slightly under you. So you can see green, it means they're weaker than you, and that's good. Red means they're stronger than you, and that's, bad, but it's not a terrible idea to rival the Mamluks, because if someone is a rival of your rival, they will like you, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So as the Ottomans, typically you're going to want to expand to these small nations around you. Byzantium, Athens is a vassal of Byzantium, maybe even Genoa, Karaman, Ramazan, Dulkadir. You're going to want to expand into these areas. And so you might want to, look and see if you can get one of these countries. I can't, so okay. I do know that Venice has lands that are here, so I might rival Venice. That icon is still there, so I need to pick another one. Another way to look at this is there are nations that have rivaled you. Enemies up here, rivaling them never hurts. You can kind of look and see who they are. I will go ahead and say I'm going to do Austria and Mamluks. Just as, nice things to be doing. The next thing you want to do is indeed build to force limit. So what you do there is you will go to your military right here, and this number here is your force limit. I currently have 27. I need 35 to build the force limit. So I will build up there. You can also see down here 27 out of 35. So I will just click the infantry button, and I will click however many I need to get to 35. Okay, that turns to yellow. If I click it one more, it'll turn to red. If you are over your force limit, that just costs you extra maintenance on that unit. So for the infantry, that costs 10 per month. That last one might cost me 11. But if I were to click like 7 more, then that might start costing like 20. In order to cancel it, you just click this minus button here. And then you also have diplomats. You want to get those diplomats doing something. So I remember that I want, in my mission tree, I want to own Constantinople, so I want to get a claim on Constantinople. So I'm going to want to make my diplomat spy for me. The other thing to do is to find allies. I will want to have an ally. So I will go here, and diplomacy is apparently one of the things that is in a DLC. So I might look around. Who might want to be my ally? I might click on Naples. Naples would not accept an alliance. Okay, we'll click on the next one. The Papal State would. They might be a good ally. Poland will not. Bohemia will. With Poland here, you can also see it's very close. Those numbers are very close. So it's possible that Poland would accept an alliance if I improved relations with them. You can improve relations up to 100 with any other nation and up to 200 with any subject. If it went from minus 10 to plus 90, maybe they offer an alliance, right? If I can continue to look around, Tunis will accept the Mamluks. They're my enemy, they're rivals, right? So they will not. So you can kind of see how that goes and what that might look like. So you can click Offer Alliance to Tunis. Okay. Generically, you can just look at like size of country. There's a way to look at the army size. We'll get to that in another video, but that is there. You cannot offer an alliance to 2 different countries on the same day. So you have to click Unpause, which I should probably have shown how to unpause without the space key, but space key is what I usually use to pause and unpause. And so I moved to November 12th, and I have that alliance done. Now we'll go see Bohemia will still accept an alliance. If you hover over the diplomat power here, oh, I haven't gone through the top. We'll go through the top in another video. If you hover over the diplomatic power here, you can see the relations down at the bottom. I have 2 of 4 diplomatic relations. I have Ragusa, which is right here, but you could find that. I have guaranteed them. What that means is that if someone declares war on them, that I will be called to defend them. But right now, I cannot call them into my wars, and if someone were to declare war on me, they would not come to my defense. I could offer them an alliance, in which case I would then be able to call them in, and they would be called to defend me if someone were to attack me, or I could revoke that guarantee and free up a diplomatic relation slot. If you go over the diplomatic relations, so if I were to get 5 diplomatic relations right now, then it's just you lose 1 diplomatic power per month. So instead of making 8, I would make 7. It's not really that big of a deal to go 1 or 2 over. It's probably a big deal to go 4 or 5 over. The relations are allies, guarantees, subjects, or people that you have access to walk through their lands. If they have access to walk through you, that's not penalizing you, it's penalizing on them. So that's the basic things you want to do. And you want to get as many allies as you can, and then when all of these troops get formed, you will then be able to build the force limit. Let's go ahead and let 50 some odd days pass. Once you get all your allies all set up, you will speed up to get your claims or get to whatever your next thing is, and go. You click speed up, speed down. There are 5 speeds. I typically would recommend playing on speed 3 or speed 4 as a beginner. Speed 4 as you're just waiting for things to happen for sure. No one can declare war unless it's already a scripted event until 1 month has passed in game, which is December 11th. All right, let's go ahead and pause. So this little button up here is the pause, or again, the space key works as well. So you'll notice that 1 month has passed. I picked up 10 administrative power, 8 diplomatic power, and 10 military power from where I was before that. And I have received a royal marriage offer from Tunis. So I will accept that. You want to royal marry your ally most times. And so now I can look up here and say, oh, I have a royal marriage and I have allied them. Fantastic. In Muslim nations, it doesn't matter as much, certainly Sunni nations, but if you have a royal marriage with someone, you can get their dynasty, or you can put their dynasty on your dynasty on their throne, as well as every royal marriage is plus 10% chance to get a new heir. But we'll just keep going. We're going to play until all of these units are created. 35 days from now. You can see over here all of the units are being created. And so there we go. I have reformed the Imperial Army. I didn't know that was there. Oh, total army size of at least 85%, so I could have just done it with that. So that would give me a permanent claim on a lot of different places, which is great to do, right? So you just, once this is here, you'll get a little notification saying mission fulfilled, and you get a nice little star, and you can click those things, and you're well on your way. Notice, however, that I now have more men, and so my army maintenance has gone up, and you'll notice that I also am now losing money. So in this particular case, I would probably click that button to get the stuff, to get the benefits, and to move down the chain. You'll notice I can now look for consolidating Asia Minor, and that's places where I can attack. Also, you know, building down here, I can expand the Ottomans, and that would be the next thing to be going for, right? So you want to be going for all the things that are in color. That's kind of what you want to be doing. But we will deal with all that in a future video. Right now, I've been Thic Borders. I hope that this has been informative as a first video in a tutorial series, and please continue to watch. We'll have more of the tutorial series, and eventually we'll get a nice little playlist going for it, and maybe even have it pop up on your screen right now in an end tag. But I have been Thic Borders, and I will see you next time.